Over the years, guys, I have used so many different controllers. Whether it's the Wii U Pro controller, the standard Xbox controller, the Xbox 360 controller, DualShock 1, 2, 3 even, or the Wii U gamepad. Heck, the controller that I probably have the most time on right now is my VR controllers. So I have used a lot of different controllers over the years, but never have I decided to venture into the category of elite controllers. These are your SCUF controllers, your Xbox Elite controllers, your PlayStation Ultimate. I don't really actually know what they're called, but I know that they are incredibly expensive, peaking well over $100 for each of the ones that I listed below. And today, for some reason, I decided, why not take a look at ASUS, who has the ROG Raikiri Pros. And coming in at very much the same price as those other Elite controllers, this one being $169, which is oof. Does it really do anything more or is at all any better than the controller that you can get for $60 to $40 depending on the sale, or even Nintendo's rather expensive $70 Pro controller, which these two are more or less equal? Today, we're gonna find out. We need to see if there's actually an advantage to having something like this. So let's get right into it. So let's take a look at this box here. So the Raikiri Pro, designed for Xbox, which I do find really, really weird. It's probably just branding that indicates that this is a licensed third-party device, because Microsoft is doing this whole weird thing where first-party controllers and third-party controllers that are authorized are able to work on an Xbox, but third-party ones that are not. This would also kind of weed out a lot of your really, really bad controllers. But at the same time, it is a little weird that Microsoft is limiting this in this kind of way, since even Nintendo and Sony have not, though Sony's probably not too far behind. That being said, I do find it really weird that this is designed for Xbox, because if you look on the side here, it actually says it is completely wireless for PC, but requires a wire for Xbox. So you're not gonna be playing this thing wirelessly on your Xbox. So yeah, it's designed for Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, Windows 10 and 11. Presumably it would work with Windows 8 if you tried it. I'm guessing the RGB will not though. So yes, this controller has RGB. It has an OLED screen on top of it, which you can see right over here on the back. There are back buttons that are by default mapped to the Y button, but again, all remappable. And it looks like you can change the sensitivity of your sticks. That's pretty standard. Change the dead zones, again, standard stuff on a lot of newer controllers. And heck, even the ROG Ally has it built into it, and the Steam Deck. So that's kind of cool. This is something special. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about this one yet. All right, let's see. Okay, I will never fault two companies for having presentation flair. ASUS and Razer. They do a really good job. This inner box is beautiful. I mean, you can see it on the top-down camera. It's well branded, very nice, and it does protect the controller, and it feels quite, dare I say, elite. Hello. I mean, she do look pretty. She feels pretty nice too. All right, let's see. Oh, there's two back mappable. We did have a little peel there. So honestly, they feel identical in so many ways. Wait, is that a kickstand? Oh, it's a dongle. It has USB-C. What are these two buttons for? There's extra buttons everywhere. All right, so, and what? Okay, there are some features. You've got a lot of different inputs than what's on here, the Xbox controller. And this has a battery. So this has a lithium-ion battery inside of it. It does charge and recharge. Triggers, There's a bit more tension on the official Xbox ones, along with a bit more of a curve, but these feel closer to the Ally. And then what I noticed is there's these little spots right here, and this makes them fast triggers. So it takes away kind of the analog granularity, and then makes them kind of like just quick rapid fire triggers, which for certain games is perfect. There are some rhythm games that I play that suck using these as the trigger, but would be honestly amazing with that. And they're easy enough to disengage that the hair trigger would actually be kind of useful. I didn't expect that. We then have, let's continue along the back. We have two sets of back buttons. We've got one that are like kind of just like I guess really paddle buttons, and then you got ones that are buttons that you can press. I don't know which ones I would map to match the ROG Ally, probably these paddles, but it's interesting. And then on the top here, of course, we have our bumpers, but then we have an extra set of buttons here, and I'm not sure if those are also mappable, and if they are, pretty cool. We got ABXY, feels almost identical. They're a little bit clickier, a little bit snappier than the ones on the Xbox, but that might just be new to old. They do sit a bit higher. We've got a mic mute button down here. That's useful. And of course, a standard headphone jack, it looks like, which pretty cool. Means you're going to be able to pass your audio through your headset, which if you're playing this on a TV, not a bad idea. Stick tension wise, they have more tension than the standard Xbox controller, but I don't dislike it. Size wise, I think they're pretty much identical. Like if you're looking at these two shells side by side, they're mostly the same. And it holds the dongle, which we discovered, which again, nice little details all around. And then of course we've got our share button, Xbox button, and then our menu buttons. So I wonder if I can remap the share button to be the same thing as the ROG Ally menu button. Again, we'll have to get in there and take a look to see. I've used this controller for a while now, and I have some thoughts. There are some really good things and some not so great things about this controller. So let's start with the positives. For one, I really love this feature where you can switch the controllers from an analog mode to a sort of quick trigger mode. This feature is great in certain games. Games like Genshin Impact, where you use this button to dodge, perfect. It's kind of nice. It's a balance between, you know, having the quick trigger and having the analog triggers. And they're independent of each other, so you can easily make it so that if you needed the analog triggers, you can turn them on per trigger. It's great. I love it. Another really cool feature is this headphone jack at the bottom. It's actually pretty powerful. It's got a good DAC built into it, and I mean, it's just good. The controller feels pretty good in the hand. It's a little bit grippier than a standard Xbox controller, which I kind of like. Some people don't really like it as much. There is kind of a weird thing with the two different finishes, but because your hands are going to be mostly on the sticks and the buttons, it doesn't really bother me that much. And feeling like a first-party Xbox controller is actually a really good compliment because it feels good. It's intuitive. You just pick it up and you're good to go. And also, I don't hate the D-pad, even though it's the disc-style D-pad. So overall, the controller feels great. And where it works, it works. But where it doesn't work, well, let's talk about it. It is really cool that this controller can be connected in 3 different ways, whether it be Bluetooth, through its own dedicated dongle, or through USB-C. But 2 out of those 3 ways of connecting limit features. This controller has RGB and RGB control, but if you want RGB sync, it has to be wired. If you want to use this headphone amp DAC combo, it has to be wired. And that's just 2 major features that are kind of limited. If you want to change profiles on this thing, it's gonna be wired. Now you can save those profiles and actually access them through this little screen on the top, which does very little other than to be an on-controller menu, which, okay, I can see that being a cool feature, but it's pretty useless and it kills the battery on this thing pretty quickly. It is rechargeable, so it does get points for that, but it just falls short of my expectations for its price. But the real kicker is the fact that it's not even the best controller for the ROG Ally, which is what I bought it for. You see, unfortunately, there is no joy to mouse support on this controller at all. None in the software, nothing. And that's disappointing because there's actually great joy to mouse support on the ROG Ally. And it uses the exact same software. It just has a separate, segregated tab for this controller. And it's not really integrated that well. It's very different than what I've experienced with Razer Chroma, where everything is just kind of tightly integrated. And then let's talk about the profiles, because this is the part that annoys me the most about this controller. So if most of the features for this controller only work on a wired connection on a PC, you would think that there would be PC specific features, such as mapping these back buttons to maybe a keyboard function, which would be nice for certain games that don't actually have necessarily a need for a mouse, but might have extra functions that can be tied to these back buttons. Or hear me out, enabling the on-screen keyboard, which again is a feature that is on the ROG Ally. You can't do any of that. None of those extra functions can be mapped to this. The only functions that can be mapped to these back buttons are what's on the face buttons and the triggers themselves. It's got 4 profiles that you can switch from, but how many combinations of these face buttons and triggers to these back triggers can you possibly make? There are some cool things involving sticks and like a spline curve that allows you to actually adjust how sensitive they are at different sensitivities. It's really, that's cool. And that does work, but I don't see this as a feature that is worth its price. And that's kind of the crux of the issue. This is a good Xbox controller. It would be a good Xbox controller at $80, maybe $90, but at its current MSRP, it is not worth it. I don't like to be overly negative about a product on this channel. In fact, I actually debated not doing this video, but because these Pro controllers are in a market in which they kind of are really just competing against themselves, I thought it would be important to actually highlight this one because we're going to be looking at others. And this one sets a very low bar, a bar that is easy to beat. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you have a Pro controller that you want to see on this channel, maybe the Xbox Elite or the PlayStation variant, well, I'd be happy to take a look at it. It'd be pretty easy to beat this one. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Wolfie, out.